Oj, 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 oj. that good? Is that good? Is that good? Testing, testing, testing. Fuck. Want it right about there, maybe? I don't know. That's not even hitting yellow. If I cap it out, whatever. Good enough, right? Good enough for the girls I go out with. Oh, wait a minute. I don't. No, I don't. I got no room on my desk here. It's already a small desk as it is. Because I live in a small place. But I have one side set up for like my phone, whatever news I'm looking at. Usually has a drink next to it. And then I got the laptop. And then on the other side I have a Toshiba tube television. It's only a 13-incher, but you know, those tube TVs take up a bit of room. And I figured out, which I should have known all along, part of my issue there with the delay on the microphone or on the sorry, on the headphones, that little quarter to half second delay I was getting that was making me stumble on my fucking words, sounding like an idiot. Which, yeah, I'm an idiot. That's not in question, but my microphone has a little headphone plug-in on the back of it. So if I plug directly into there instead of through the computer, listening to the output from OBS, there's no delay. And without the headphones on, it just feels weird. Like I need a little bit of feedback so I don't just feel like I'm talking to nothing. But I've actually used that feature years ago when I used this microphone to make music. So I should have remembered. But, like I said, I'm an idiot. Okay. Now what's on the table for tonight? Well, really nothing, honestly. I didn't I didn't exactly come into this planning any topics. I figured I'd pull up my phone here, see what comes up. I know earlier in the day I was thinking about Trump. I was talking about Trump. A couple buddies. I was thinking, like, what do I really approve or disapprove? How much of what Trump's done in the last 8 months can I really say, okay, I'm 100% on board with this, or at least mostly on board? You know, good idea, maybe not the best execution, and then how much of it am I like, take it or leave it, and then how much am I like, fuck this, fuck you, Trump, right? And I came to the conclusion that it's only about 25%, give or take, because I don't pay the closest attention. I've really become kind of worn out, I'd say, on politics and all the latest happenings. And I know there's some people who, like, in 2016, I was just all over it. The first 4 years of Trump in office, I was, like, so politically charged, it was insane. But, you know, 4 years has passed since then. I'd say 8 years since I was really, like, super big in it. Back when, like, QAnon was kind of popular. That was around the time I was paying attention to stuff. And now it's just like, I don't care. Like, I do. I kind of follow things here and there. I'm trying to stay somewhat educated, right? But for the most part, like I'm focused on other things. I can see how people would look at me back then, like, dude, you're way too into this. You are just obsessed with the whole political. Because it was like my first like real entry into the political world. Like before that, I didn't really care. I had my beliefs. Everyone has their beliefs on things, but I never really took it to like, oh, let's follow what's going on in politics. Let's see how the president or what's going on in like local government, which for me the furthest I look is state. Like I don't really pay attention to what goes on in county or city. I guess now I look more into the state stuff than I did before because the governor of my state doxed Ron DeSantis. He kind of, you know, made himself a household name in the country. Most governors, you know, they're governors of their state. And I'd say in most states, most people, maybe not most, but there's a good chunk of people in every state who can't even name their governor. But anyone that follows politics even a little bit, well, they know who DeSantis is because he ran for president. But then even before he was running for president, when, like, did he run in 2020? I don't even remember. I think he did. Or was it 2024 that he ran? See, this shows how little I really know. But like the whole don't say gay and all that, like that was getting national attention. So he's done a good job at making and keeping himself sort of relevant. Like other than DeSantis, I couldn't name anyone in politics in Florida. I know way back it was like Bill Nelson. I remember that guy. I don't even think he's still around. God rest his soul if he isn't. Even though he was a Democrat. But that was in like 2019 that I heard of Bill Nelson. Point is, I mean, you got guys like that. Then you got like this Pritzker dude, J.B. Pritzker, who's kind of making himself a national headline too. And obviously, like Gavin Newsom, everybody knows him. But you're not gonna find people in, let's say the governor of North Dakota. I would say most North Dakotans probably don't even know him by name. They'd be like, oh, that's the governor? Yeah, okay. Show them a picture, maybe they'll recognize him. But the rest of the country, no one knows the governor of North fucking Dakota. Nobody cares. I actually made it a point during this last election. The day before election day, when the votes were counted and everything, I said, I'm getting off the internet. I'm going to try to stay off the internet. Not even like go on my phone. I had it set up to where the day before I turned off that, when you open a new tab, how it shows you news stories. I turned that shit off on there. And I didn't go on any of the sites I usually go on. I didn't listen to any shows on YouTube or anything. I was listening at the time to old Opie and Anthony, like the archive stuff. By the way, if you're into Opie and Anthony or ever were, and you want to listen to them, pretty much everything they've ever done is on the Internet Archive. At least going back to like 98, before they even got on satellite radio. But that's what I was listening to at the time, so I was like, how long can I go? And even then, I made it 2 days. Because I went to the grocery store. And I was going to go at least 2 weeks. I was gonna be like, I want to be the most clueless man in America. I want to be the only guy in America that doesn't even know who the fuck the president is. I'm in the grocery store, and there were these two black women, two categories standing there, talking about, I don't even remember, but I remember what one of them said. Oh, now we gotta be careful, man. Now that Trump back in office, they finna be coming after us, man. We ain't safe no more. Something like that. I was like, fuck. 2 days. 2 fucking days. I can't even go out in public. Everyone's talking about it all loud. But I was like, okay, what exactly is it, getting back to what I was saying. What exactly is it that, say, Trump, for example, what is he doing that I like? What is he doing that I don't like? And that made me think, like, okay, as far as the immigration thing goes, I'm for that. I don't really care one way or the other. Like, it's not directly affecting my life if we have illegals in the country. But we shouldn't have them here, just on a matter of principle, right? You try to illegally enter Canada, they're going to deal with that pretty straightforward. You try to illegally enter Mexico, and I don't know why any American would want to go there. They're not going to just let you stay there. They're not going to give you a bunch of free shit. You're not going to have just entire swaths of the Mexican population protesting and fighting against their immigration people to bring you out of the country. This is mostly a Western thing, like a Western first world country thing. I was just gonna say more of like just an American thing, but it's not, because if you go to Europe, the same shit's going on in like Britain, France, Scotland, Ireland, which is surprising because the Irish are very territorial. They're very serious about their Irishness. And a lot of them do not want their country and their racial demographics being diluted, to put it kindly. I mean, Germany, France, Italy's got the problem. Sweden. I remember around 2015, 2016, it was being heavily talked about. The so-called invasions of Nordic countries. Everywhere in Scandinavia. I would say it kind of ends right about Poland. I don't know about like Austria, Hungary, but Poland definitely was like, no, we don't want any of this shit going on. Stay out of our fucking country. We are Poland. We're Polish. And we're gonna fucking keep it that way. And then you go any further east of that, and you're in the Balkans, and I mean, you think there's a reason why all these migrants, like Somalians, Arabs to an extent, the whole Hispanic, Latino thing is just a problem in the States. You don't have huge Latino populations in Europe because they're not on that side of the world. So that's one thing that Trump does that I can say I'm 100% behind this. Maybe he's executing it a little badly. I mean, ICE is detaining American citizens. ICE actually, if this news story that I read on CNN a while ago was to be believed, ICE detained a Army vet who was working security on that pot farm in California. You guys might remember. that whole debacle. And he was detained for like a week or something, and talked about the conditions of being in there. Like, okay, yeah, clearly that's wrong. If a guy shows you, like, I'm an American citizen, and, hey, motherfucker, I served in the army, that should be enough to say, well, obviously this guy's not an illegal. What are we doing? Why are we fucking with him? Clearly it wasn't. So the execution may be a little off. But I can get behind the immigration thing. And I don't understand why so many people are against it. I even talk with my father sometimes. He's a liberal. And I will have, although a lot less as the years go by, there's no point in talking to people on other sides. I think I covered this in one of my older streams. If you want to talk to something or talk to somebody about a specific topic, and that topic can be broadened into bigger things, because pretty much every topic can, if you're going to have conversations about politics or social issues or whatever, it always kind of broadens itself out to being an issue of, well, what is your worldview versus my worldview, right? And if you don't share any kind of framework, the most basic of frameworks, for me, talking to my father and most other liberals I've talked to, that basic framework is the belief in God. So if you're a Christian, or for this matter, even if you're a Jew or a Muslim, and you're talking to an atheist on some social issue, not only is it a waste of time because, I mean, for the most part, discussing social issues, you're never going to change someone's fucking mind. But especially not if you're coming from a point of believing in God and what that entails for a social issue, any given social issue, let's say immigration or homosexuality. They're coming at it from an entirely different vector than you are. And it's a waste of time. It's like if you don't share at least one basic tenet of, like, okay, we can start here, we agree on this, let's broaden it out a little, let's widen the scope of discussion until we come at something we disagree on, and let's figure out where that stems from, because it won't be anything that we talked about before that if those are all things that you agree on with the person, right? But I always found, talking to my dad, because he's a liberal, but he's also an atheist, we can't agree on even the most basic. For an example, talking about the immigration thing, it's like, well, I'd say that it would stem from my belief on it, at least, is something that was kind of instilled in me at a young age, because I grew up listening to a lot of Michael Savage on the radio, and his big thing was borders, language, culture. And I think that, I mean, those three things are essential to the nations of the world. How can a nation exist without borders, right? Well, it can't. But the language and the culture, that's, in my eyes, a little less nuanced. I mean, go to any other country in the world, and you're going to find that there's usually a unified culture. And within that is a unified language. I don't think there's any country left in the world where everyone is the same culture, the same language. Even the Middle East, they have, different forms of Islam. Some of them speak Urdu, some of them speak Farsi. Some of them speak Arabic, whatever. I could be wrong about that because I thought one of those is just a written language. I could be wrong. But without that base to base a group of people on, which is what I was talking about with my dad, because he was telling me, like, yeah, diversity is a strength. We need diversity. I'm like, look, I like diversity to some extent. I like that just around the corner from my house is a Mexican style taqueria. I'm probably butchering that because I'm not a Mexican. I like having their food. I like Mediterranean food. I like Arabic food. So I like having those kinds of restaurants around to where I can go and experience the culinary culture, which food is a part of culture, of a country that's halfway across the world. I mean, where I live in Florida, we know we got a lot of Haitians, we got a lot of Jamaicans. There's Jamaican restaurants around, and I like Jamaican food. That's about as far as diversity goes with me, all right? And some foreign music I like. But I don't want to be basically lambasted and demonized for saying, I prefer to be around, say, other whites, because I'm white. Which there is some truth to that statement, but I don't really take it that far because I'm not one of these people who identifies so heavy on the white thing. I would rather be around a bunch of Christians, preferably Orthodox Christians, but I'll even include the Catholics in this. I'd rather be around them. No matter what country they're from or what their culture is or what language they speak. Obviously, I only speak English, so I can't go hang out with a bunch of people who don't speak English. There's a reason we speak different languages, and I mean, if you look at it biblically, the reason why humanity was split up into these different nations with different languages, the Tower of Babel. Not Babylon. I've heard people messing that one up a lot lately. I've had this bottle of vodka for about 2.5 weeks, and I just opened it. Well, that's good. A few years ago, I couldn't have done that. If I buy one, like, I'm drinking it that day. Temperance. Not quite asceticism, but temperance. It's very important. Ew. On a side note here, because I keep my drinking glasses in the freezer, for some reason, and this time I let it thaw out fully. But when I pour that first drink in, the first sip or two, I get this weird wet dog-like smell. Doesn't affect the taste at all, but just the smell of the glass. Yeah, it's kind of disgusting. Back to it. The problem I have when talking with any, let's say, liberal, although I think this actually is a broader issue than just liberal, because I don't really believe in the whole left versus right thing. Like, it exists, but it's also a false dialectic, especially in this dichotomy, false dichotomy. Am I thinking of dielectric grease, like that you put on spark plugs? Probably. The false dichotomy in this country, because you have the left which is about what the left is about. Their usual, you know, freedom, do as thou wilt, degeneracy. And then you have the right, most of which are a very specific kind of right-winger that seems to be the majority in this country, railing against the left. And it's like, wait a minute. You guys are responsible for this. Your classical liberal ideology, your Enlightenment philosophy that the Constitution grants, your idea of rights. Jim Bob says it best about guys like Ben Shapiro. You know, I don't agree with what you're saying, but I'll die to defend your right to say it. Therein lies the problem. You want to fight against the left? Well, understand you created the left. You're more of a leftist than you think, classical liberals. So that whole dichotomy is rapidly crumbling away in this country as the left becomes more bold and as culturally this country moves more in that direction. It doesn't matter if we have a Trump in office. It doesn't even matter if the Democratic Party just completely concedes and says, okay, we're going to let the Republicans run things now. We are no longer a two-party system. It's still going to be culturally very left, liberal, liberty above all else. Do as thou wilt in this country. And I would say that does kind of tie in with immigration because, like I said, it's a very Western phenomenon where you have natives of a country fighting against people who have a little bit of sense, saying, no, we shouldn't let so many others in this country. We shouldn't let them into our government. Which is what I would say that's one of our biggest problems in the United States is that we allow foreigners to serve in our government, to serve either as, you know, senators, congressmen, judges. How the hell did Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar end up in our government? They're foreigners, but that's not even the biggest. They hate America. And, you know, the older I get, the easier it is to see why people would hate America. Of course, they hate America for very different reasons, and I would say I'm against this in America. My biggest problem with America is what I just laid out about the classical liberalism being the founding ideology that pretty much tumbleweeded itself into this shit storm, complete clusterfuck that we have today. But they're all for that. They hate America for very different reasons. And you got the judges that are constantly blocking everything Trump's trying to do. And I talk about this, like I spoke with my father about it, and he was all, it doesn't matter. The judges are just taking what is being done and they're filtering it through their legal lens, basically, and they have to determine if what he's doing is legal or not. And I said, well, that's the problem. You're all for it if it's legal. So if we legalize child molestation, better yet, let's say we enforce that you have to molest children. Otherwise, you go to jail. There are still going to be people who, knowing full well that pedophilia is wrong, are going to be like, well, it's the law. I got to do what the law says. I don't want to be a criminal. Get the fuck out of here. You're insane. Who cares if something's legal or not? And like, oh, well, it's not the judge's prerogative to judge whether something's morally right or wrong. He has to judge whether it's legal. And the Supreme Court has to take a law and determine whether it's constitutional. Well, and I posit to my father when he said that. And to any of you out there thinking the same thing. First of all, I highly doubt most of you have actually read the Constitution in its entirety. I would even go so far as to say most of you haven't even read the Bill of Rights. And rights are kind of a fabrication. They don't really exist. It's just a social contract that can be broken at any time by whoever has the most force to apply what they want to do. Do you have a right to your own property? Well, let's say I come up with a gun and take it from you. There goes your rights. Oh, but it's my right. Well, too bad. Either you give me your money, or I'm going to shoot you and then piss on your open wound from the bullet. You're probably going to give me the money. Or if you have any sense, you'll pull out a gun before I pull mine out, and you'll shoot me. Defending your so-called right. Might makes right? No. Might is might. Right and wrong doesn't come into the equation when someone's doing something that clearly is wrong. Theft. Taking over your land, for example. Let's take it off the personal level and let's just look back through human history. For all time, people invade other people's land with armies, and if the invader wins, it becomes their land. That's how it's always been. And that's, dare I say, how it's always going to be. Even if you want to say, oh, well, if we have like a one world government type of deal and it brings about a semblance of peace and order to the whole world, yeah, but they did that by force. They would be utilizing force, and they're probably going to have to kill a lot of fucking people to achieve that goal. What makes that any different from one country invading another rather than, let's say, the UN taking over all of, and again, this is hypothetical. I don't think the UN will actually do this. Wouldn't surprise me if they did, though. What's stopping, or what's the difference between a governing body that's supposed to be over, say, however many countries are in the UN, expanding their power, saying, well, we're going to go here now. You guys didn't sign up for this? Well, you need to sign up. We're going to annex you, and we're going to force you to live under our rules. You're going to answer to our courts. You're going to use our currency. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that Russia and Ukraine is. I mean, I don't want to get into the whole history and geopolitics behind that, but I will say that Ukraine was its own sovereign entity, and Russia wants to make Ukraine a part of Russia. Was it a part of Russia in the past? Again, I don't know. I don't want to get into that. Let's just say that, for all intents and purposes, that is an invasion. And I think, not to take any sides on anything, but I think that that is perfectly normal throughout human history. This shit happens. Whether it's right or wrong, it just happens. That is might. That is force. But that got way far afield of what I was trying to say. Which was talking about Supreme Court justices, or in the sense, other judges that are blocking what Trump's doing because it doesn't follow the Constitution. It doesn't follow the law. Well, maybe it doesn't need to. Maybe our laws are a little broken. Maybe we give illegal immigrants a little too much due process. Maybe we're too nice to them. Because like I said, most other countries, they're not going to give you a fraction of the leeway that the United States will give you. And you got these people fighting to give them more, calling you fascists for having laws in your own country, for having your borders, your language, and your culture, and not wanting it to be taken over by foreign invaders. And that's not to say that every single person that comes to the United States illegally is coming here with malicious intent to subvert our culture. Because, let's face it, we're doing a perfectly fine job of subverting our own fucking culture. The biggest threat to America is not the Mexican, it's not the Haitian, it's not the Muslim, it's not the Indian. The biggest threat to America is the self-hating white liberal. I said it. People who hate this country, who hate the fact that they're white, and they want to bow down and kiss the boots, or more or less in our country, kiss the fucking Air Jordans of a certain category and say, I'm sorry for being white. You can have everything. Everything I own is yours. You can beat me up. You can rob me in public, mug me, put a gun to my head, and I'll give you everything because I feel bad for you. And then I'll blame myself for being white. A little exaggerated, I know. But is it really? Because there are definitely more than a few people who think that way in this country. And all over the world. Well, at least in Western Europe. I would go so far to say that you go to Russia, that shit ain't happening. You go to China, that shit ain't happening. You go to India, that shit ain't happening. You go anywhere in the Balkans, that shit ain't happening. You go to Africa, that shit ain't happening. You go to South America, that shit ain't happening. The only outlier there would be Australia, because Australia is its own whole mess. I would say they're actually way worse than we are here in the States. But if you go to India, guess what? You're going to see a lot of fucking Indian people. And the whole place is going to smell like curry. And they're going to shit in the streets. And you're not going to have all this, oh, well, we're letting in, just theoretical here, hypothetical, because I don't know their situation. Let's say there's a big influx of Mongolians to India, which I know there's not, but let's just say Mongolians, first country I thought of. You're not going to have Mongolians serving in their government. You're not going to have Mongolians taking over entire areas of towns. There's not going to be little Mongolia. And if there is, it's going to be very little. like a couple blocks maybe. Which, again, there's nothing wrong with that. This is what gets me about all these so-called forward-thinking progressives. It's not okay when the white man does it. Who's that guy, Arvork, whatever his name was, that's doing the whole return to the land, white-only town in Minnesota or wherever? It's not okay when he does it. Oh, he's a terrible racist, and you know he's a white nationalist, so we should burn him at the stake, basically. But they're okay with it happening in their city when it's, say, Somalians. Because people group together with who they're like. Why do you think there's little Cuba in Miami? Because there's a lot of fucking Cubans there, and they tend to stick to other Cubans. Because they share culture, they share language. So that's okay. And you know what? It is okay. I would say that most people are going to want to stick to what they know, to what they are. You go to the ghetto, you're going to see a lot of blacks. And they don't want to, for the most part, they don't want to go live in Whitey's area. They want to be around their own. That is normal for people to do that. Except when it's whites. At least according to these progressives. To these white haters who just so wish they could have been born black. They wake up every day and run to the mirror, squealing with joy. And then they look in the mirror and oh, I'm still white. And then they're all angry for the rest of the day. Every white person they see, oh, he's probably fucking racist. He probably doesn't even want to give the blacks reparations. Well, that guy probably hates Mexicans. It's like, no, in reality, you guys are the ones with the hate. You hate yourself, and you hate any other group, insert group here, so much that you want to force everyone to integrate. It's funny. I've been using this analogy for years, and I just heard it not too long ago about diversity, and I guess it applies to race mixing, although it's more of a cultural thing that you don't want individual cultures to stay their own. We need diversity. We need to keep mixing the pot. Because America's a melting pot, right? Well, if you go to the ice cream parlor and you say, I want a little bit of cookies and cream, and I want a little bit of coffee. And the blue-haired, tatted up troon behind the counter says, no, we don't do that here. You need to have equality at this ice cream store. No, Steve, I'm live. You know I'm live. Why are you calling me? So she goes ahead and mixes up every single flavor into one big pitcher. I was going to say a cone. They probably don't have a cone that big. And it just becomes this homogeneous gray goop. She's going to hand it to you. Say, this is a quality flavor. And you're going to say, oh, okay. And you're going to try it. And it's going to taste like shit. And you'll probably throw up. And you'll throw up into the container of ice cream. And say, here, I just made it a little more diverse. And you mix it up and give it back to her. No. Let people, let cultures exist as they are. We don't need to intermingle. People that want to, like I said about food, yeah, I love going to that taqueria. They make some really good fucking tacos, like Mexican style street tacos. That doesn't mean I want to come home and be forced to listen to fucking salsa music. That doesn't mean I want to have the rest of their culture shoved down my throat. And if I say anything against it, I'm a racist, bigoted, spicophobe. Let the Arabs be the Arabs. I love shawarma. Oh, I love shawarma. But just because I go out to the whatever Pakistan restaurant and I get some really good shawarma and I go home like, that's good. That is so good. And then I get home and I now have a couple of, did I say Pakistan? No. I want to try to be a little correct here. Fuck it. I got some Taliban guys in my house burning my Bible, shoving a Quran in my face and forcing me to convert or I'll die. They'll behead me after they skewer my cat on a spit roast and cook it alive in front of me. That's just not how it should work. People can enjoy other cultures just as they are. And they should be allowed to reject other cultures whenever they feel like it. And if that means some fucking Aryan looking dude wants to start his own township of only whites, he should be allowed to do that. If the blacks want their own black-only colleges, let them have it. I don't want to go there. Forced integration was the worst thing that happened in well, maybe not the worst, but one of the worst things that happened in this country. If it was going to happen, it would have happened naturally and slowly and in a very controlled manner, controlled by the individuals who were doing the integrating. It should not have happened at the end of a gun. They should not have integrated schools at gunpoint. We are a nation of immigrants, yes. But at some point, that's got to stop. At some point, we're going to say, well, we have enough people here. No vacancy. Let's put a nice big neon no vacancy sign in the Statue of Liberty's hand. Let's get rid of that torch, because that doesn't mean anything. Just hold up a huge sign, like the biggest screen that's ever been created. Let's say half a mile across. And like, I don't know, 1/8 of a mile wide. Or high. And just big, no vacancy. Because we have enough immigrants, and they're going to have children. In fact, they're having children at higher rates than even Native Americans, not Indian Americans, but, you know, us native-born whites, Hispanics, blacks even. The Arabs that come here are having tons of kids. Indians do it. So we should just let that happen. No. That's what they want you to think. Let it happen. It's not about, oh, you're a racist. It's about, eventually America won't be America anymore. Eventually Great Britain won't be Great Britain anymore. when your country has been a certain way for, let's say, hundreds of years, at least in the case of America, but in other countries way longer than that, and now your demographics are changing, and it's on trajectory to where you're going to become a minority in your own country, that's the end of your country. It's no longer your country. It's going to belong to others. It's going to belong to foreigners. It's going to belong to people whose culture, whose religion, whose ideology, language, everything is different from yours. And then is it really your country anymore? No! But yet you have these crazy, mostly white, mentally ill liberal people fighting for their own destruction and demonizing those who are trying to prevent it. And that's all I got for you tonight. I think I've already gone a little too long here. What am I looking at? 57 minutes. Yeah, that's it. That's it. I shall return with God's will and your listenership, all 0 of you, at a later time. And, do I have my thing? Is it? Oh, I can't end yet. My computer's freezing. There we go. Alright, till next